Hello everyone, this is Marianne from Revealing Light Tarot. I'm smiling because just before this is the second start of this video, and I was trying to explain something about uh, other dimensions, or another dimension that I tune into, and I had a Freudian slip when I said I attune my enemies. I actually meant attune my energies. So I've started again, but I've told you the story anyway, so I probably should have let it roll. Okay, let's get back to why I'm doing this video today. I want to thank you for all your wonderful comments from last week's video. I do try and remember that I do try and stay humble. I do try and stay grounded, because the energies that come through me are from another dimension, and hence that's why I made the Freudian slip. I probably do need to protect myself and protect my energies a little bit more when I do the readings, and I have put on extra Chiron essences today, which is angel sword, which is a protective energy. So because what we're reading about is actually quite real. But back to how I open up my readings, I do tune into another dimension, if you like, and I often see people sitting around the table. The reason I'm telling you this story, and they've got their hands joined, is because I think I'm being helped. It's not... I have certain skills to bring forward, but the energies that come through are coming from a universal consciousness, a spiritual dimension that I even don't fully understand myself. But nevertheless, it's very real and it's very there. So thank you for your wonderful comments, and they're received always with gratitude. So let's move on. I wanted to look at the nature of power this week. We'll intersperse Trump into those readings, but there's two things. I want to know if he will be successful in the courts with declaring an emergency, a national emergency. Of course, I watched that interview with Stephen Miller and Chris Wallace on Fox News, and it was quite blatantly clear that this is obviously manufactured. It's like we're just going through the motions here. There's already court challenges, I think, from Crew, is it, and others, and I'm not sure if the Democrats have formally launched a challenge or not. There are many options open for the Democrats on this. But I think I get the feeling they're considering their options here, because they may want, as Nancy Pelosi alluded to, they may want to do the same thing when their president is in power. It's not good, is it? The emergency, declaring a national emergency like that is not for building a wall after Congress has said no to your appropriation or to the money that you want, and then robbing other appropriations to get that. And I understand that it's coming, some of the money is coming from the military construction budget, which means that military won't get their houses upgraded or houses built because Trump is doing this folly that really is just throwing meat to his base, but is alienating everyone else, the great majority of voters. So hence the unfitness of the man for the office. So I want to look at power this week. I want to look at will he be successful in getting that money through? Now, we had Mike Pence, VP Mike Pence, going to the Munich Security Conference. At that particular conference, you had US allies that had been trashed under Trump come out and speak very forcefully against him, in particular Merkel, the German Chancellor. And then when Pence got up to the stage and mentioned Trump, saying that he was a great champion of freedom and strong national defence, he was just met with silence. It's like nobody cheered, nobody said anything. So the hostility is there now. The just total, total dislike of Trump, and really they've left Trump behind in a way. They've moved on. They've seen they've been vulnerable and they've moved on. They don't take US support for granted. They don't rely on it, or they're starting not to rely on it. But we still had the same tide all things being trotted out by Pence. NATO members need to, chip in more, and in the meantime, we'll build this $8 billion, 200 miles, I think. That's all it gets, this wall. But anyway, what I'm seeing here, apart from the details of things, I'm seeing that power is being eroded over many levels of Trump and the Republicans. And such is the nature of power, that I guess when we look at power as an internal thing, eventually it's almost like it will be dragged down, because it's only being looked at in a one-dimensional way. So I think what I'm seeing coming through for Trump now is losses across many levels, because he hasn't empowered anyone else. He's only empowered himself, and consequently people are now starting to take him down in multiple ways, through the courts, through investigation, through allies really turning away from this present US leadership, through to the GOP, his own party, coming to a bipartisan deal with the Democrats, putting forward legislation independent of Donald Trump, and then taking it to Trump saying, well, here, sign this. So in many ways his own party is going around him now. So let's have a look with the overview of power. What do we need to understand about Donald Trump's power at this particular time? Let's have a look at that. What do we need to understand about Donald Trump's power at this particular time? What do we need to understand about Donald Trump's power at this particular time? I'm just getting an image of scissors, and so it's being cut away. So it's not fading gently, it's actually being cut away quite significantly. I was going to say brutally, but it could be well brutal to him. But there's something more forceful about the way his power is going to be taken away. It's not going to be a gentle process. Okay, so what else do we need to understand about Donald Trump's power at the moment? We can use this as a template for other authoritarian regimes. It's changing. The shift is moving away from people like Trump and Putin towards something else, and this is something that they can't control. It's a necessary cutting away. So what are the key messages here, Spirit, around Donald Trump's power, his condition, the conditions that he faces? Is his power being lost? Is power being cleaved away from him? Cut away. Okay, we've got the moon, and we've got the illumination, but there's nothing gentle about this illumination. Now, when I used this card before in this particular pack, someone said that looks like Putin in the moon, and in fact it does. But this is around he and Putin, the Russian investigation. What's driving the loss of his power is what has occurred in the past. So this is really around treachery. This is really around conspiracy. This is around hiding everything that's bad in politics. Is the focus, is the signifier card. Now, what is his challenging? Okay, what is challenging Trump at the moment? It is these painful endings. It's rock bottom. And I just want to make a comment about power, the nature of power, because I think this is an important overlay to this reading. At the beginning of this reading, I talked about when power is only used internally and not externally for the benefit of others or to empower others, when it's so totally internally focused. And I'm just getting an image of Putin here in the moon card, because I think he is an authoritarian leader as well. And his power is internally focused, as well as Trump's. what happens is that the external forces start to really demand power back for themselves. So we get to the question of leadership here and authoritarian leadership. Authoritarian leadership that doesn't work for the multitude, for the many, will eventually come to an end. And this is what's happening with Donald Trump. He's a very naive, in a way, quite worldly in many ways, particularly around money and how to achieve his financial goals, potentially not in a direct route, can be a subversive route. Very, very wise there. But in another way, he failed. He failed as a leader, and that's what's challenging him at the moment. He is hitting rock bottom. And what's happening is we've got secrets to be revealed. And the other aspect of this card is that those leaders, there's a reason why I brought up the Munich Security Conference. Those leaders were sitting there, and what they've known all along, but the power that Trump had in the first 2 years before the midterms prevented them from really coming out and overtly challenging his power. They always knew. They knew that these are European leaders that sit under the shadow of the aggression of Vladimir Putin. Let's not make any bones about this. Putin has been conducting aggression worldwide, and I will read this week on cybersecurity because my sources, the various intel that comes through to me, are putting, and across the world, I'm not just saying in America, are putting cyber warfare front and centre as one of our next challenges. We all know at this subconscious level, which is why we're maybe attuning more to spirit at the moment, because we all know what is benign and what is not, what is malevolent. Sorry, we know that. So really, the loss of power is allowing this subconscious to come forward. And what is the subconscious that is coming forward is the will to, can I put it plainly, get rid of these people like Trump and Putin. And here we have the action coming forward, the soldier of truth, the freedom. We don't want our freedom compromised, and we hold that dear. We have the right to freedom. We have the right to free will. We have the right to have our rights upheld and not be taken away from us. And so this is what authoritarian regimes aim for, when power is internalized and not externalized. So this is, we have Mueller, we have the lawmakers, we have the courts, we have the will of the people coming forward now to challenge Donald Trump's power and leadership. It's been cleaved away, cut away from him till he will have nothing left. And we've got this continual prizing open the truth. Some people can see this as the Mueller investigation. Indeed it is, but I also see a deeper layer to this. This is what happens when we become aware, when we switch on, well, I was going to say switch on our heart chakra, but also switch on our sacral chakra and our third eye energies as well, where our wisdom starts to grow. So there is a collective movement, and it's gathering pace, and it's taking the power away from people like Donald Trump, and eventually Putin will fall as well. We've got choices to make. This is the crossroads card. So at a higher level, the nature of power, when it starts to fall, when it starts to fail, it's because of the choices that we make. Now, we have a chance to choose one way or another. And in any situation where power is held and internalized and is not externalized for the greater good, there comes a time when it does fall, when it does get taken away, and people don't understand that the nature of power is such that if it is not externalized for the greater good, then it will be challenged eventually. But at the time of challenge, we've got choices to make. Do we choose more of the same, or do we learn the lessons and choose differently? So this is a broader reading than just Trump's national emergency declaration failing in the courts, or him not getting applauded at the Munich Security Conference, or allies speaking out against his regime. It's broader than that. There is a higher message here around the nature of power and when it falls. And the message here for us as the people who take the power away from these people is that there are decisions for us to make. How are we going to do this? What are we going to learn? It's at its very best, I would love to see a legislation reform in America to prevent this happening again, because that will flow through to other Western democracies as well. The environment at the moment around power, Trump's power, is it's being suspended. Okay, so this is the hangman. This is also self-sacrifice, and I often say, this is someone continually shooting themselves in the foot and wondering why they're experiencing such pain. Eventually they're going to tie themselves up in knots and really they are going to be forced to see another's perspective. So again, we come back to the nature of power and really people that internalise and don't externalise for the greater good, the power that they are given, they are forced in the end to view something from another perspective and another angle, and one way or another they get to see the lessons that they are learning, or maybe they don't learn. But either way, there's some kind of view that they need to see things differently and potentially will. What is the perspective that Donald Trump eventually will see from? Potentially it could be the loss of his money, if indeed he does have any. It could be power being taken away from him. He's all plastered his name on all the buildings. It's been very important to him. Externalising, or internalising, I should say, not externalising for the greater good. What good does the name Trump on a big tower do for anyone but Trump? Okay, so, you can fool, that old saying, you can fool the people some of the time, but you can't fool them all of the time, all of the people all of the time. And this is what's happening now, and he's being turned upside down. I would like to probably take a bet that internally he is very, very volatile and very mixed and it's like his world is turning upside down. I'd like to say that that's probably the perspective that he's starting to have right now. Now, the Queen of Swords, the environment around him, the Divine Feminine and the Sword of Truth, and the Divine Feminine and the Sword of Truth is coming forward to achieve more stability. This is why, again, his power is being, the challenge for him, his power is being taken away from him. Record numbers of women elected into the Congress, into the House in 2018. We're seeing the rise of the Divine Feminine, and some of that's happening in Australia as well, where we have women coming forward and challenging these men that have been in the Parliament for decades. And one in particular won in our ex-Prime Minister's seat and then went on to introduce, she's a doctor, she went on as an independent to introduce legislation into the Australian Parliament to ensure that asylum seekers get the medical treatment they need that are on islands surrounding Australia. And they will be brought to Australia to receive medical attention. Our own government, the coalition government, didn't support that legislation. Our other opposition party, which is equivalent to the Democrats, did. And of course, it got through. And really, if our current Prime Minister was up front with us, he probably should have called an election, because he did not win that vote. Instead, he went on the fear-mongering that Australian shores are going to be overloaded with illegal immigrants, and he pulled a Trumpism. So we'll see where that leads him. Hopefully Australian voters are savvy enough to see through that. So what's the hopes and the fears? Okay, and this is around the loss of power, that cleaving away of it, and examining exactly what the nature of power is through Donald Trump's eventual fall. We've got the Hermit card. We are really hopes and fears. It's in the hopes and fears position. Okay, so what are our hopes? that we will have enough illumination to move forward. I mean, we're potentially bringing something new forward, and that can be quite perilous at this stage. It's akin to the moment before birth, if you want to look at it like that. But we're hopeful that we will do enough reflection to bring something new forward. We're also fearful that we are walking in the dark. And this is a particularly powerful card in this deck. I'm using my Llewellyn Classic Tarot. And this is the Hermit comes forward as someone who is really in isolation, having to learn themselves. They're having to reflect. They're having to seek inner guidance. They're having to look to other ways of informing themselves because the old ways have failed, and they need to reflect in order to find a new path. So this was a metaphor, I think, for both Donald Trump and his downfall. I haven't got to Putin yet, though I can see Putin in this reading. I guess his time will be further down the track. And I do want to look at him in some detail this week. The threat that he poses, and it's around cyber security. But back to us, because we've got choices to make, we've got decisions to make. Where it's the crossroads card. I think we need to go within and reflect on who we give our power to and why, and what happens when they do abuse it, and what are the lessons to be learned here. As voters, we give these people power, and I know that's not the case in the US. A certain amount of people did, but also I think I read figures around 100 million stayed away. So that was their response to being put into a situation where they felt that neither party was helping them. They'd lost faith in the Democrats to a certain extent, and they protested by staying away. You had all those issues prior to Hillary Clinton's nomination, winning the nomination as the candidate. Either way, for whatever reason, and it's complex, and I think people need to go within and really look at that. Voters didn't turn out, not enough turned out, and Trump was elected. We also had Putin interfering in the election and rigging it in favour of Trump, both financially and through manipulation of social media. All of those things need to be examined and reflected upon, so that the way forward is a new path, not an old path, and that's the hope here. But also the fear is we're operating a little bit in the dark. Now, what are the conditions around Donald Trump's power? The nature of power is loss here. We've got the Eight of Cups. This is withdrawal. This is abandonment. This is walking away. Now, this is a dark night, and it's not going to be an ending that is going to be. I saw the cutting away of his power. It's almost like a slow. I don't want to use the word death, but I will use that in terms of a situation coming to an end. Gradually, those things, that power structures that supported Donald Trump, are being cut away. So he will, in the end of the day, whether via impeachment or not winning 2020, or before then because of the result of the Mueller investigation, which is what I thought would happen when I did my 6 months timeline in the latter part of this year, 2019, he will be forced to walk away because he will no longer have the confidence of his own party, and the Democrats will have begun begun impeachment proceedings. So I think in the end the Mueller investigation will come through with such veracity that he will indeed be forced to walk away. So this is the nature of power. He will lose it because he internalized it and took it for himself, and he didn't externalize it for the greater good of the many. So a lesson on power, as well as everything else, is coming with, or is here. It's already here with Donald Trump. But really, I think one of the most important cards here that come through this reading is the Crossroads card, the Two of Swords. There are choices for us all to make about who we give power to and why. So I'm hoping that Spirit, I do feel Spirit has been guiding us all this way. And we see this on from the many readers that are coming forward and channeling Spirit. I think that we have a divine aspect to these events, and I think they're unfolding. But it is perilous, and I don't want to understate that. But I think when you are feeling that unsettled energy around these world events, I think it's really go within and connect with Spirit is the best advice that I can give you. So I'll leave that there, and what's on the bottom of the deck, even after I shuffle, is we've got this Knight of Swords, so the action and the truth, the freedom fighter. We won't let our freedom be taken away, and we want our rights to be upheld. So look to the freedom fighters that are coming forward now, and of course for America, Robert Mueller is one of those. I'll leave that there, viewers. I hope you enjoyed the reading.